Mary Orvis Marbury is sure that the Lady of the Lake was invented by Dr. Hobbs. Current research suggests that that may not be true, but if it's not, nobody knows who invented this fly in 1860. I'm tying the fly from illustrations in Mary Orvis Marbury's book, Favorite Flies and Their History. I also have a photograph of this fly that Mary tied. The Alexandra, she labeled it Alexandria on this particular card. It was renamed Alexandria or Alexandra after Princess Alexandra, the daughter of Christian the IX of Denmark. She married Albert Edward, Prince of Wales, in 1861, and then became queen in 1901 when Edward became Edward VII. I'm tying the fly on a number 6 hook with black thread. So a silver tag, tying a bicolor tinsel in by the silver side to the hook. That way when I flip it, I get the silver. I will wrap that tag down around the start of the bend of the hook. And I am using an extra small tinsel for the tag. I do like that because it gives a flatter wrap around the bend of the hook. Bring my thread back to my catch-in point, and then I'll catch in that tag. And I am going to wrap the tag all the way to the eye of the hook because I don't want a lump back here at the end of the hook. I'm going to be tying in a wider tinsel for the body, and if I don't have a nice even body, then that tinsel doesn't lay well. So just bring that thread all the way up to the front of the hook. Then I can clip out the tag material. So the fly in Mary's illustration and the fly that she had a red or orange tag over the silver tag. So a piece of red floss, again, wrap the entire length of the shank. Just take my thread out of the way, and then just wrapping a gold or a red tag over the silver tag. Bring my thread back, catch that in, and then wrap over that all the way down the shank. The tails on the more contemporary Alexandras are red feather fibers. Originally they were ibis. This is actually dyed goose shoulder. But the fly in Mary's illustration and the real fly have peacock sword for the tail, so that's what I'm going to be doing. And the illustration just uses 3 swords, whereas her actual fly I think has 5 or so, but it may be that she tied on a much larger hook with more than 3. So I'm just going to use 3 for the tail, the length of the shank, and trying to tie them so that they curve up. Again, wrapping the whole length of the shank right over those to keep that flat. I do need to trim out the rough butt ends. Then I have some gold oval tinsel that I'm going to use for the rib. Tie that in the entire length of the shank. And the body, I have a wider silver tinsel. It is a bicolor tinsel, so I'm going to tie it with the gold side out, the silver side in, and I have clipped the end of it. See if it's a little bit easier to grab a hold of. And just, I'll try that again. Okay, let's lay that along the hook. As I wrap, it'll push it up over the top of the shank. Bring that all the way down here to where I have that red tag. Now when I flip it, then the silver will show, and I'll try to keep it nice and tight and flat as I wrap, a little bit overlapping so I don't have black or other stuff showing through. And I think that's good. There's lots of stuff that happens up here behind the eye of the hook, so I want to make sure we leave room for everything that's going to be happening up here. Some wraps over the top, fold it back and wrap underneath. I can clip that out. And then I'll take that silver oval and wrap the rib in spirals and try to keep the spirals evenly spaced. It's interesting to do a silver over silver like this. And this, according to Mary, is an imitation of a minnow and not of a bug. It was originally fished, she says, on large flies and fished deep in lakes. Before I tie wings in, I'm going to put some hackle, and I'm going to use some black hen. So I have this black hen feather. I'll just pull off the fluffy stuff at the base or at the butt, clip that short, and just lay that stem against my shank and wrap in up over it. And then I'll grab that. It's a fairly short feather. Grab it with my hackle pliers and get that wrapped in. The hackle should not be any longer than the distance to the point of the hook, but it can be a little bit shorter. So I'll catch that end and then pull back on all the barbs and wrap up over them. make some space to tie in the wings. So one of the recipes says to just grab some of these top barbs and pluck them off. That'll make some room for tying in the wings. Still note that I've actually got the tip of that feather. The fly, as is tied now, in addition to having that red tail, just has the red shoulders with the hurl swords for the wing. Mary's fly has an underwing, so I'm going to use the dull side of these. These are secondary wing feathers off a mallard, and so I get that kind of gray mottled underwing, and I don't know what purpose it served, why it was taken off later, but it does add a little bit of substance underneath of the peacock swords. So we'll put those in first. Clip out the butts. And I'm going to wrap back up over those a little bit and give myself a little more room for the peacock. And I'll take just a good healthy bunch of swords, trying to get them lined up evenly. And those will sit in up on top of that quill. If I tie back up underneath of those, it'll make it easier to cut them out, maybe. So now I just got to trim out all the butt ends here. Without also cutting the thread. And then finally, there are red shoulders. Originally they used ibis. We don't use ibis anymore. I'm going to tie those in curled down so that they kind of flow with the hurl body, or the sword body. Well, it is hurl. And put one on each side. Just 3 wraps over that. And I'll turn my hook over so I can see the other side. And wrap another one of those in. And then I'll start at the eye and then wrap back up over the top of that and try to cover up all the red as I build a head. The flies that Mary tied do have fairly substantial heads on them because she was tying on hooks that didn't have eyes, and so she had to tie gut in. And gut is the internals of a silk worm, the actual silk caterpillar that was dissected and stretched, twisted into material that they used for eyes and leaders. Just push my scissors against the thread to cut it out. And I do use diluted goop for my head cement. So I just stick a needle in my jar, grab a drop, and then drop that on the head. And that'll soak in. This is Alexandra. According to the illustration and fly tied by Mary Orvis Marbury, it's the first of her lake flies in Favorite Flies and Their Histories, published in 1892.